Ahoy there, and welcome back to Building the Boys. We now have issue 70 of Hachette's Build the Titanic. In this one, we're building our third section of the promenade deck. And again, there's not loads to do. So essentially what we're doing is we are laying some deck into this, and then we are attaching the third section to the first two sections that we've built. So nice and straightforward, nice and simple. This is a very long deck. Now, there's not going to be as much detailing on this deck because, I mean, another deck's going to sit on top of it. You're not going to see all the way through, but at some point, we're going to be building the parts up to it, but we've got to build the deck itself. It's going to be a very large deck by the time we're done. At the end of this one, we will be having our Titanic talk. We'll be talking about the heroic dog of the Titanic, Rigel, the heroic dog. And it seems like an incredibly far-fetched story, because it is. But we'll talk about it at the end, and we'll talk about who Rigel was, who he was supposed to belong to, where the story came from, what he was supposed to have done, what it was all about. We'll go through all that. If you haven't yet, please remember to like and subscribe. It helps us massively, and we just love having you along for the journey. We really do. Before we get into it, there's one more thing. There is a group. So for those of you who like to modify your Titanics, there is a great group that was set up by a friend of mine, friend of the channel's Mark Hendy. He's also supported over there by Gene. Specifically for modifying the Hachette/Agora Titanic. So they've got lots of great tips on if you're looking to repaint, if you're looking to change anything, if you're looking to add anything, 3D printing. It's a fantastic group. I really, really recommend you check it out. I've put a link in the description below, link to their Facebook page. So if you're interested in modern Titanic, even if you're not, you just want to see what other people are doing, head on over. It's a very friendly group. Head on over. They'll let you in. They're nice. Tell them I sent you. And yeah, check it out. But let's get into this. Let's get this one built. Okay, so let's get this one open. Let's have a look at the pieces we get in issue 70. Now again, there's not loads doing this. It's almost a repeat of what we did in 69. So there's our deck parts there. Here is our actual pieces left there. And there are the AP screws, as expected. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to lay this decking onto this section here. So what we'll do first is we'll measure them up and make sure they're going in the right place. So this one will be going on there like so. And this one will be going on the opposite side here like so. Now, as I've said before, you don't have to glue this. You can just trust the adhesive on there. I put a very thin layer of wood glue just to give some additional bond to this. So I'm going to get that glued up. We'll get these removed and we'll get these installed. Okay, so I've applied a very thin coat. I'm removing the back in from the deck in here, and then we're going to install this. So let's get this in. Now, I tend to go for, I mean, this is a choice of preference, but I tend to get this piece in first and then let the rest of it kind of marry up. There we go. So when we're happy, we're gonna clean down. I mean, that is another advantage of putting a thin layer of glue on. Let's just make this slide about a little bit in the installation process. There we go. This one's snug. The other one wasn't. This one seems really snug. But I mean, snug's not bad. There we go. There we go. Now we put the other one on. Okay, so get the second one on. Remove the backing from this. And again, I'm going to get nice and snug to there. Got that piece in there. Push down. Smooth as we go. There we go. Nice and simple, nice and easy. Looking good, looking nice. Now we're going to attach this to the other two pieces that we built, and we're going to screw it into place with the AP screws. So let me bring that up and let's get that done. Okay, so flipping this one over, we're going to take our assembly so far, attach like so, and then we're going to hold this in with 4 of the AP screws. So nice and simple, and then this one is done. I mean, there's not loads to this, but again, we are making a fairly humongous deck here, and it's going together a lot quicker than what we did the original deck, because there's going to be less detailing on this deck. There just is, because you're not going to see it. It's going to be covered by the deck we've already built. but that's okay. As I've said, I mean, I see it a lot from different part works where, I mean, particularly with the Batman that we've just done, where there is a lot of complaint that there wasn't loads to do. Well, unfortunately, there are going to be some parts of the Titanic which are quite simple to put together, and there are going to be parts that are quite complicated, and the economics of the part workers, it just balances out in the end. So that's all 4 screws in. Let's zoom out. We can have a look at this when we turn this one over. So that's how that's now looking. Very nice. So we're looking large already. That's 3 sections of the promenade deck together. Let's have a chat. So that's that one done, nice and simple, nice and quick. And we're looking big, right? We're looking really big already. That's a lovely piece of decking. Pleased to say all the decking lines up perfectly as well. There's no gaps, no seams. It's looking nice, real nice. So we have one more section to add to that, I believe, at least one more section to add to that, maybe another. But that is all for that one. If you are just sticking around for the build instructions, thank you for stopping by, and please remember to like and subscribe. For those of you sticking around for our Titanic talk, we're talking about Rigel, the heroic dog of the Titanic. Now, you might have heard this story, or you might have heard people tell this story. This is one of those stories that gets banded around quite a lot. Who is he? What is he? What did he do? What makes him so heroic? Where did he come from? Where did this story come from? Well, there's a lot of kind of variations of this story, but I'll tell you what the main one is. This is what he would have looked like. This isn't him, and there's a reason why there's no picture of him. This is what he would have looked like. So that's what Rigel the Newfoundland would have looked like. Now, according to the story, he was owned by Murdoch, who we know tragically was lost in the Titanic disaster. The story goes that Rigel ended up in the water and he stayed next to... There's a dog barking, that might be him warning me about the story. The story goes that he was swimming in the water for like 3 hours, and that he stayed next to Lifeboat 4 and wouldn't leave its side. He swam next to Lifeboat 4. No one knows why Lifeboat 4, but Lifeboat 4. And the story goes that when Carpathia arrived, Lifeboat 4 was at risk of going under the bow. And Rigel started barking. So the dog started barking because all of the crew on board and all the survivors on board were exhausted and couldn't shout out to the Carpathia. Hearing the dog's bark, they turned the engines off of the Carpathia, looked around and they found them. So they rescued everybody, and they said that Rigel was too heavy to remove from the water. So a seaman on board, Jonas Briggs, made a harness, wrapped it around the belly of Rigel and pulled him from the water. That's one version of the story. Another version of the story is that a passenger called Briggs in Lifeboat 4 saved Rigel. Now, you would have heard this story about the dog that saved people, and it's just a story. It's not true. That's the reality of it. The family of Murdoch stated quite clearly that neither he nor his wife Ada ever owned a dog, let alone a Newfoundland. Nobody in Lifeboat 4 reported ever seeing a dog, let alone one barking. The Carpathia was never going to run over Lifeboat 4. That never happened. The engines were turned off way before Lifeboat 4 actually rode up to the Carpathia. That never happened. There was this thing of they couldn't see them through the fog. There was no fog. So when the Carpathia arrived by the morning, it was actually quite clear there was no fog. So that's not true. There are no accounts of anybody on board called Jonas Briggs. That part's not true. There was nobody in the lifeboat called Briggs, so that part's not true. Quite simply, it's just a completely fabricated story. There is no truth in it. Now, why was that story fabricated? Well, at the time we spoke about this, the sensationalization of newspapers were offering cash money for stories about the Titanic. And somebody made up this story. It was a hopeful story in a time of kind of despair, and it certainly sold papers, and it struck a nerve with as they said, people that like facts that don't really care about the facts. That's what it was. It struck a chord with dog lovers. And there were stories about, I mean, this happens a lot. So I remember a story, a couple of stories about the tragedy of September the 11th, where people reported seeing this heroic dog that saved dozens of people. Didn't happen. That's also a fallacy. It sells papers is what it does. And you know, there's that old saying of don't let some of the truth get in the way of a good yarn. And that's what's happened here. So if you ever hear the story of Rigel, the heroic dog, and someone's telling it and, you know, they've got a big smile on their face, you got one or two choices. You can either go, oh, yeah, wow, that's an interesting story. Or you say to them, yeah, I hate to break it to you, but that ain't true. And this is with the amount of heroism that was shown on board that night and the amount of sacrifice that people made, you don't need a story about a heroic dog. You just don't. There's enough reality of Titanic without adding hero dog to the mix. It's unnecessary. It just doesn't need to be there. But sadly it is. That is all for this one. We will be back very, very soon with issue 71 with more Promenade deck. Please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Check out the Facebook group for modifications. It's well worth your time. And if you'd like to contact us, you can contact us at buildingtheboys@outlook.com. In a world where you can be anything at all, just be nice. And I will see you very, very soon as we continue our voyage aboard the Titanic. I'll see you then.